Hello and welcome to GB News YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. Now today I'm looking into a story that is shaking the very foundations of our economy. Britain finds itself teetering on the edge of a financial crisis reminiscent of the turbulent 1970s. And at the centre of this storm is none other than our Chancellor Rachel Reeves. So where exactly is Rachel during this national crisis? Oh, that's right, she's in China. Yeah, possibly with a begging bowl, attempting to secure some sort of deal that will create growth in our economy. She's visiting a place where they are building coal-powered stations at a rate of knots, whilst also creating the technology with it to facilitate net zero, like solar panels, so they can ship it over to other countries, whilst also buying swathes of Africa to rape the earth of its rare minerals. Now, there's nothing wrong with Rachel going to China to try and secure a deal, but Rachel, on the other hand, along with the UK's political elite, have done very little to help out our economy. To turn her back on the growth of our own coal and steel industries so they can turn their noses up at other countries to show how good we are at subscribing to a net zero pipe dream without any real backup. Fossil fuels are the devil. Even though Rachel has chosen this precarious moment to jet off to China, leaving a nation in economic turmoil behind her, it is a move that is raising eyebrows and questions across the political spectrum. Let's break it down. What is actually happening and what it means for you and me, the British public. So the financial markets are in a state of upheaval. This morning we witnessed gilt yields climbing to levels not seen in almost 3 decades. And for those unfamiliar with the term gilt yields, they are essentially the interest rates on UK government bonds. Now, when these rates rise, it becomes more expensive for the government to borrow money, which can have a far-reaching effect for the rest of the economy. Now, this surge in gilt yields is not just a number on the screen, it's actually a very clear indicator of the market's lack of confidence in our economic stability. It is basically a red flag that investors are demanding higher returns to lend to the UK government, perceiving it as a riskier bet. It's a bit like if you've got a lot of debt behind you, you're not really going to get a very good interest rate if you want to borrow money. So in a move that is drawing parallel to Sir Keir Starmer's controversial trip to China, Rachel Reeves has embarked on her own journey to the east. The timing couldn't be more questionable as Britain grapples with what could potentially evolve into a full-blown financial crisis. But our Chancellor has decided that now is the opportune moment to build bridges with Beijing. Some could say she's running away. Now, this decision raises several critical questions. A, about government priorities. Is this the right time for such a diplomatic mission when our domestic economy requires immediate attention? B, look at the optics. How does this appear to the British public and, of course, international investors when the person in charge of our economy seems to be fleeing a crisis of her own making? And C, strategy. What does Rachel Reeves hope to achieve in China that could possibly outweigh the pressing need to address our economic woes here in the UK? Rishi Sunak was right.
The Chancellor inherited lower borrowing than France, America, Italy and Japan, and the second lowest debt in the entire G7. So any which way you look at it, Labour's claims about their inheritance are purely ludicrous. These are her choices, so stop blaming everyone else and take responsibility for them.
He was on fire that day, and it was clearly rage. As the economic situation deteriorates, speculation is rife about the government's next move. The pressing question on everyone's lips is, what taxes will Rachel Reeves hike to try and stabilise this teetering economy? She promised that she wouldn't come cap in hand again, a one-off. Very naive. It's a fundamental principle of economics that you cannot borrow your way out of a borrowing crisis. The options available to the Chancellor are limited and potentially painful for the average Briton. We could be looking at increased income tax rates, which they promised not to raise in their manifesto, a raise in VAT, which again they promised not to raise in their manifesto, higher corporation tax. Well, most businesses are struggling under the current burden. This will hardly incentivise growth. And new wealth taxes, which will have those with cash to burn further fleeing this country. All of these options come with their own set of consequences, potentially stifling growth, reducing consumer spending, or driving businesses away from our shores. The comparisons to the 1970s are not made lightly either. For those who remember, or those who studied that period of time, it was in economic turmoil, which was characterised by high inflation, stagnant economic growth, industrial unrest, a crisis of confidence in the government's economic management. Well, if this sounds familiar, then the parallels are striking and deeply concerning. Are we witnessing history repeat itself under Rachel Reeves' stewardship of the economy? Rachel's jaunt to China is not just about timing, it's also about substance. The idea of building a new golden era of relations with China is, quite frankly, impossible in the current geopolitical climate. They must be looking at her and laughing at the mess that she's made. We must ask, what concessions might she be willing to make to secure Chinese investment? As a nation, begging when you're on your hands and knees is not a good look. How does this align with our allies' approaches to China, particularly allies like the United States? And what are the security implications of closer economic ties with Beijing? The decisions that she makes in the coming weeks and months will have profound complications for generations to come. That, of course, if she lasts for the next few weeks and months. We need clear, decisive action to restore confidence in our economy and our government's ability to manage it, with immediate attention given to fiscal policy, so a clear plan to reduce government borrowing without crippling the economy, monetary policy, working with the Bank of England to stabilise inflation and interest rates, and investment strategy, encouraging domestic and foreign investments in key sectors to drive growth. So far, it's all been taxes and spending. And trade relations, balancing our approach to China with our other international commitments and values. And of course, cutting government waste and reducing the overblown civil service. The state is far too big. Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves at a critical juncture. The decisions made by Rachel Reeves and this government in the coming days will shape the economic landscape of our nation for years to come, and sadly, I have little confidence in their ability. The question remains, will Rachel Reeves return from China with solutions, or will she find that the real work needs to be done right here at home? Only time will tell, but one thing is for certain. The British people deserve better than economic mismanagement and ill-timed foreign jaunts paid for by the taxpayer from a Chancellor who back in the day had her parliamentary credit card suspended after owing more than £4,000 worth of unauthorised payments. I'm afraid Rachel is out of her depth. She needs to go. But not to China. The question is, if she is forced to resign as Chancellor, who would take over? This is Nana Akua for GB News YouTube, keeping you informed and asking the questions that matter. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more originals content.